A white bottle turns in a pharmacist's hand. The screen flashes a rejection, preferred alternative, prior authorization. The patient has insurance. The drug is real. The claim still fails. The pharmacist does not set this gate. The manufacturer did not write the rejection code. The employer that bought the health plan is not on the phone. Between the bottle and the benefit sits a company most patients have never hired and cannot name: a pharmacy benefit manager. Health plans hire these firms to control prescription costs. That is the assigned job. They assemble pharmacy networks. They maintain the list of covered drugs. They bargain with manufacturers. On the contract, the intermediary exists because drug spending is complicated and plans seek someone to restrain it. Then the paradox comes into focus. The same position that is paid to police the bill can also collect value from the space around the bill. Rebates travel from drug makers toward the manager and the plan. The charge sent to a health plan for a fill can diverge from the reimbursement sent to the pharmacy that dispensed it.
The manager can sit inside a corporate family that also owns the insurance card and the pharmacy counter. No cartoon villain is required. A payment chain with several invoices is enough. The patient is shown one figure. Behind it, other figures can move without appearing on the receipt. A list price, a confidential concession, a pharmacy payment, a plan invoice. Ordinary people meet only the last small number they owe at the register. The temptation is to call the whole chain a trick. That is too neat. Plans hire these firms because claims must be adjudicated, networks must be built, and someone has to sit across the table from a manufacturer. The contradiction is not a glitch in the hiring. It is the market that the hiring built. How did rebate negotiation, formulary control, spread pricing, and vertically integrated pharmacies place intermediaries between drug makers, insurers, pharmacies, and patients? And how can that arrangement influence which medicines people receive, which counters fill them, and how the cost is split?
Most people still picture a two-party market. A factory sets a price, a drugstore sells a bottle. Insurance, if it appears at all, is imagined as a simple percentage off the sticker. That picture is the blind spot. For decades, the real transaction has been a stack of contracts the person at the counter never signs. Pharmacy benefit managers did not begin as authors of the preferred list. They began as clerks of the claim. In the late 1960s and through the 1970s, as employer coverage widened and paper claims multiplied, specialized firms offered to process drug benefits the way a clearinghouse processes checks. The early product was administrative. Pay the pharmacy, keep a file. The plan still felt like the principal. The vendor felt like a back office. The 1980s changed the object being sold. Mail-order pharmacies promised 90-day bottles shipped to a kitchen table at a discount. Managed care organizations sought narrower lists and tighter networks. If an administrator could steer a patient toward a cheaper molecule or toward a manufacturer willing to concede something off the published list price, the vendor was no longer merely paying bills. It was shaping demand.
The formulary stopped being a catalog. It became a lever. By the early 1990s, manufacturers had learned that access to millions of insured patients was itself a priced good. Some drug makers bought the middlemen. In 1993, Merck acquired Medco Containment Services. The deal made the logic visible in a single corporate outline. The firm that invented a molecule now owned the firm that could make that molecule preferred. Regulators and rivals stared at the stack. The acquisition did not invent the rebate. It advertised why your rebate had become rational. If a list can anoint a product, the anointing will find a fee. The 1990s and 2000s consolidated the clerk. Independent administrators merged. Insurers built or bought their own managers so the list would live inside the same holding company as the premium. Pharmacy chains acquired managers so the network and the counter could share an owner. Managers acquired mail order operations and later specialty pharmacies that handle the expensive, self-injected, and infused drugs. The claim that had once been outsourced returned to a family of affiliates. What patients missed was not one unforgettable scandal. It was a change in the unit of competition. Manufacturers still bought television time and sent representatives into clinics. Corner pharmacies still posted hours on the door. But the decisive contest moved to a room the patient never enters. Which product is preferred? which pharmacy is in network, which concession is credited to which pocket, which number appears on which invoice. A federal auditor eventually had to write this down in the language of government. The United States Government Accountability Office, in a review of how selected states regulate pharmacy benefit managers, documented the functions. These firms administer prescription benefits for health plans. They negotiate rebates with manufacturers. They affect drug pricing. They use pharmacy reimbursement arrangements, including spread pricing, in which the amount billed to a client may differ from the amount paid to a dispensing pharmacy. States were already drafting rules around those arrangements, which is why the auditor was in the file room. Hold the description at its actual size. The GAO account places the manager at the junction of pricing and reimbursement.
It does not convert that junction into a verdict on every fill. A plan that does not hire an administrator still needs a network, a list, and a way to extract concessions from manufacturers who publish list prices few large buyers intend to pay. People kept believing they were watching a retail sticker, while the industry had reorganized around a negotiated net, a preferred list, and a formula that can pay one number and charge another. By the time a patient argues about a copay, the important bargain is already closed. It closed in a rebate contract, a network contract, and a benefit design. The counter is only where the result becomes audible to the patient. So the paradox at the register has a past. Plans hired clerks because claims were a burden. The clerks acquired the list. The list acquired a price. The price acquired a second price. And the second price does not print on the back. The market is easier to see if you stop looking for a hero and follow the incentives. Start with the health plan. It is an organization that promised coverage and now has to survive the bill. Drug spending arrives as thousands of claims and a few specialty invoices. Officers seek a vendor that can turn that chaos into a forecast. They buy networks. They buy a formulary. They buy rebate guarantees written as a percentage off a benchmark. They purchase the right to tell a finance committee that someone professional is handling pharmacy. Relief is the product. Across the table sits the manufacturer. Its public number is the list price. Its private number is the net. In the United States, the gap between those numbers is not a rounding error. It is inventory used to purchase access. A concession that lands only if the product is preferred is not a random courtesy. It is a bid for the list. A higher list can make a rebate look larger as a percentage, even when the net moves less than the theater suggests. The pharmacy benefit manager lives on the seam between those two. Its oldest fee is administrative, a charge per claim, a charge per member, a charge for running the switch.
Its more interesting economics sit in the seam itself. Rebates that do not pass through can remain as a fee or a retained share. A proprietary pharmacy schedule can hide compensation in a difference. A bottle filled inside the same holding company can generate a margin in more than one subsidiary. The incentive does not need a conspiracy. It needs a balance sheet that thickens when the seam widens. The independent pharmacy buys the bottle from a wholesaler. It pays a pharmacist. It waits for a reimbursement negotiated by a manager that may also own a rival counter. When the reimbursement lands below acquisition cost, the independent is not delivering a discount. It is being asked to subsidize a network. Some stores keep filling because leaving a plan means leaving a town's insured patients. Some stop taking the contract. Some stop existing. The affiliated pharmacy plays another game. A prescription steered in-house can look ordinary to the patient and still be strategic for the parent. The parent may earn as administrator, as insurer, and as dispenser on the same fill. Clinical language is available. So is the language of convenience, 90 days by mail. The motive can be quality.
The motive can be capture. The brochure can carry both sentences. Patients occupy the residual claim. They need the molecule that works and a number at the register they can still pay. They meet the formulary as a surprise, a rejection, a switch, a prior authorization that turns a stable condition into forms. A few choices carry heat, the rest of the paperwork lacks. Drop a drug from the preferred tier and a patient loses a routine. Steer specialty fills in-house and an unaffiliated store loses the scripts that still paid the lights. Write a guarantee that rewards a high list and the public argument about price grows louder while the net stays in a confidential exhibit. These are not life stories of executives.
They are the moments when an incentive becomes a bottle that does or does not go home.
July 2024, the Federal Trade Commission releases an interim staff report on prescription drug middlemen. It is not a court judgment. It is staff analysis, and the language stays qualified, full of incentives and potential effects. Read it at that size, or the story becomes a pamphlet. The factual nucleus is blunt. The 6 largest pharmacy benefit managers in the United States handled more than 90% of prescriptions in 2023. That is not a mood, it is a share of the switch. Formulary design, network construction, and reimbursement policy for most American fills run through a handful of intermediaries. Staff describe vertical integration. The same corporate families that manage benefits also operate mail-order pharmacies and specialty pharmacies, and several sit with major health insurers. Staff describe formulary influence. The list is not a textbook. It is an instrument that can move share among products that doctors treat as substitutes. Staff describe pharmacy effects. Unaffiliated stores report reimbursement and steering pressure that affiliated counters do not feel in the same way. None of this, read honestly, means every PBM contract raises every patient's price.
It does not. A pass-through arrangement can send rebates back to a plan and reduce a group's premium. A difference between a client invoice and a pharmacy payment can be narrow. Mail order can be cheaper for some maintenance medicines. The caution in the staff report is not decoration. It is the difference between mapping a mechanism and inventing a universal victim. Hold that qualifier in the hand while the claim moves. A manufacturer publishes a list price. Sophisticated buyers do not intend to pay it. The bid for preferment arrives as a rebate schedule. Better placement, larger concession. Exclusive placement, larger still. Acting for many plans at once, a manager can assemble a volume no single employer could threaten. That is the cost control function in its cleanest clothes. One negotiator, many lives. A better net than a town-by-town argument. The same federal auditor who wrote down the administrative functions was looking at a tool states still treat as useful enough to regulate rather than abolish. The list is then written. Preferred tier, non-preferred tier, specialty tier. Prior authorization, step therapy. Each phrase is a price wearing a clinical coat.
A patient who never hears the word rebate hears these phrases as delays, switches, and copays. A drug that loses preferment does not vanish from the earth. It vanishes from the easy path. Watch the copay. If coinsurance is a percentage of a pre-rebate price, the person at the counter can pay more than the plan will ultimately bear after the concession is booked. The rebate is often reconciled later, in aggregate, in a report the patient will never receive. The chronic condition is assessed against a number the rest of the system does not treat as final. That is not physics, it is design. It is also one reason list prices can climb without every net price climbing in lockstep. The public fights the list. The contracts live on the net. The patient, under coinsurance, can be lashed to the wrong mast. On the pharmacy side, the old difference still operates. In a traditional contract, billing a client one amount and paying a dispenser another can be how the manager is compensated. In a pass-through contract, the manager is supposed to live on explicit fees, and the difference is supposed to collapse. State houses argue about which of those designs may remain difficult to audit. Pharmacies say undisclosed differences and below-cost reimbursements push them out. Managers say aggressive reimbursement is how they deliver the savings they were hired to deliver. Both sentences can be true for different claims in the same week. Vertical integration turns the seam into a corridor. A specialty claim hits the switch, codes fire. The product is preferred or it is not. If it is, the order can route to a pharmacy the parent owns. The member can belong to a plan the parent also writes. 3 invoices, 1 family. The staff report does not have to prove a crime to make the conflict legible. When the entity that designs the network also owns a node in the network, steering stops being a thought experiment. It becomes a default that can be narrated as coordination, adherence, or safety. Dominoes move. Manufacturers keep room in the list for concessions. Lists become political symbols. Plans advertise discount rates off those symbols. Unaffiliated pharmacies live on thinner reimbursements. Patients meet narrower networks and thicker paperwork.
A rival that does not own a manager, a plan, and a pharmacy under one roof finds every door a little heavier.
An intermediary hired to discipline manufacturers also disciplines dispensers, and through the list, disciplines routines inside people's homes. And then the neat story breaks. The same concentration that builds bargaining power against drug makers can weaken everyone else's bargaining power. A rebate that lowers a plan's net can still raise a patient's coinsurance if the copay is tied to the wrong figure. A staff report can document incentives without pricing every bottle in every county. States write disclosure statutes. The federal analysis remains interim. The swipe at the counter does not wait for the footnote. Even the savings language has two faces. A plan can show a committee a discount off average wholesale price beside a list that rose last year. Downstream, a pharmacy may be paid below acquisition cost for the same fill. The patient pays a third formula. 3 truths, 1 bottle. Specialty drugs tighten the knot. These claims can cost more than a used car. Once the benefit design sends the fill to the manager's pharmacy, the independent cannot compete for the script that still carried a margin. Cold chain is real. Capture can ride in the same van.
What the two federal papers do together is reject a cartoon. One records a cost control apparatus. The other records concentration, integration, and effects that can fall on unaffiliated pharmacies. Keep every qualification. Potential is not a markup on your inhaler. The wound is a system that can point to real concessions and still leave the true invoice unsigned by the person who swallows the pill. The intermediaries only need the list and the switch.
A market becomes strange when the most valuable thing for sale is not the bottle. The bottle is ordinary. What is scarce is a place on a list, a route through a network, a silence around a concession. Once those things can be priced, firms will professionalize them. They will hire pharmacists and lawyers and switch engineers. They will call the result management. In a narrow sense, the word is accurate. Complexity is being managed. Demand is being steered. Someone is sitting across from a manufacturer with a volume threat that a single clinic could never make. The colder principle is this. If your compensation can grow when 2 official numbers drift apart, you will treat the drift as inventory. You will not announce that. You will announce savings off the higher number. You will announce networks. You will announce clinical programs. All of those announcements can contain facts. The drift can still be the warehouse. That is why opacity is not merely a public relations problem. Opacity is an input. A confidential rebate cannot be comparison shopped by the patient, and can be comparison shopped only clumsily by an employer.
A proprietary reimbursement schedule cannot be checked by the independent pharmacy against a public ticker. An affiliated fill cannot be seen from the parking lot as a transfer inside a holding company. Take the opacity away, and some of the product disappears. That is not an insult. It is a description of what is being sold. There is a reason health plans keep buying the function. Claims really are a flood. Manufacturers really do publish lists that large buyers do not pay. Someone has to build a network that can fill insulin on a Sunday. Sunday insulin is not a metaphor. The tools that make that fill possible are the same tools that make preferment a priced object. Customers feel this as a copay that makes no sense beside a television advertisement. Workers at independent counters feel it as a reimbursement that arrives below the wholesaler's invoice. Suppliers feel it as a demand that they bid for preferment instead of for a simple price. Competitors feel it as a door that belongs to someone else's family. And industry feels it as a politics of list prices that never quite touches the net. A market feels it as allocation performed by contract rather than by a sticker on a shelf.
Imagine the pill as a traveler. It crosses a factory gate, a wholesaler's warehouse, a pharmacy bench, a claim switch, a rebate ledger, and a premium that was priced last year. At each border, a different number is stamped. The traveler does not change. The stamps do. The person who swallows the traveler sees one stamp and is asked to call it the price. Leave the moral heat on the table. Outrage is cheap and usually sloppy. The durable object is a rule. Intermediaries multiply where principals cannot see both sides of a trade, and they persist where the principal still needs the trade done. Shine a light, and some spreads collapse into fees. Leave the room dark, and the room rents for more.
In a country where a handful of desks can influence which medicines people receive and which counters are allowed to hand them over, the last image is not a villain's smile. It is a fluorescent aisle, a card, a pause, a code, a yes or a no. If the real market is the list, who should be allowed to own the list?